Next stop, cyberspace.
We're able to create a single TV set.
Hey there, you're watching Hololinked. My name is Diego. I am a XR product manager, and this channel is all about business, technology, and design in the XR industry. Well, except for today. Today, it's about my DIY project to display my collection of head-mounted displays. And if you're asking yourself, why does this guy collect head-mounted displays? Well, first off, I don't know why you're here. But also, head-mounted displays are just amazing technologies. I mean, this is something that allows you to fool your brain into thinking that some manufactured world, something that was made inside a computer, to seem real. And to me, that is just an insane thought. Not only that, there are these, well, currently anyway, these big, bulky computers that you attach directly to your face. And I just find that so wild. You know, this is science fiction made real. And so over the past few years, I have amassed a small collection. I have about 10 or 11 headsets, and the headsets have been sitting inside of their original boxes for the most part, and I've not really been appreciating them. They've just been taking up space in my shelves, and I really hate that. So I've had this idea for a while that I wanted to put them each inside individual cubes, and so I searched and I found one from IKEA which would suit my purposes. Where else, right? IKEA is just so fucking awesome. But of course, I wanted to be able to do more than that. I wanted to light them up. If a technology addict like me is going to light something up, well, I'm gonna do it with RGB, and I'm gonna do it in a way that I can control it with the rest of my smart home. And just so you know what to expect, here's how it's gonna go. First, I'm gonna talk about some of the tools and materials that I used. Then I'm gonna show you the manufacturing process itself. Then I'm gonna show you me building it. Then, after the build is finished, you're gonna learn about each of the headsets that I have chosen from my collection to be put up on this display. And lastly, you're gonna see what the end result looks like, and I'm gonna comment on the things that I liked about how it turned out and the things that I didn't like. There were some of those too. If, however, you're not interested in all of that, then you can click the timestamp and it will take you straight to the end. Alright, so let's begin with materials and tools. And just so you know, all of these will be linked in the description. So for the cubes, I went for the IKEA Ekit with the glass door and the wall mount. The RGB strip that I used is the BTF Lighting RGB CCT with 60 LEDs per meter. Besides red, green, and blue diodes, this strip has 2 additional diodes that are dedicated to cool white and warm white, making for more natural tones. The controller I used to be able to connect this with my Apple Homekit setup is the Gled Opto Zigbee controller. Do bear in mind that in order for this controller to work, you're also going to need to have a Zigbee bridge, such as a Philips Hue bridge. Another important thing to note is that that controller does not come with a power supply, so you're going to need one that is 12 volts 5 amps and has a 5.5mm by 2.5mm output jack. Since the RGB CCT strip has 6 lanes, I also got some flat 6-wire cable and some 6-pin LED strip connectors with both female and male components that you can solder to your preference, and also some heat shrink tubing. In terms of tools, one of the coolest ones that I got is this Klein automatic wire stripper. It's dead simple to use, and it can cleanly strip all 6 wires even on those super tiny cables, and it does it all at once. Granted, personally, I didn't need to do this a lot for this project, but this tool is so awesome. It is something that I just really wanted to have in my toolbox for the other times that I do need it. For cutting holes into the sides of the cubes, I used a Milwaukee M18 Fuel brushless oscillating multi-tool. This is my first oscillating multi-tool, and I gotta say, I love it. In order to be able to keep my holes small as possible, I also paired the Milwaukee with a Bosch 3/8-inch detail oscillating blade. For drilling the wall and driving the screws, I used this excellent and drop-dead gorgeous Milwaukee toolkit that includes a charger, 2 batteries, the drill, and an impact driver. The bits I used were from this fantastic Diablo carbide tipped 5-piece set, and it not only performs excellently, but it also matches the Milwaukee gear beautifully. And for activating the heat shrink tubing, I used this awesome DeWalt digital heat gun kit that includes all the accessories you could ever need when working with a heat gun. Here's my soldering kit. It also comes with just about everything you might need for most simple projects. These helping hands were more than helpful. They were an absolute godsend. The large alligator clips made the soldering so much easier. And finally, these are the DeWalt goggles I bought recently, and they are both the most comfortable and most protective goggles I have ever worn. I wish I knew about these before, and these are certainly gonna be my go-to from now on. Moving on to manufacturing. So the plan was to hang these cubes on the small section of wall near the ceiling where the camera I used to film my video faces. I did look into the possibility of lighting up each cube individually, but that would have made this project much more expensive and much harder. To minimize dirt, since I am cutting a bunch of wood inside my home, I took one of my tripods, some tape, and my vacuum cleaner hose, and I just stuck it in there and put it right in front of where I was cutting. With that, I fashioned myself this incredible matrix and drilled rectangular holes on the side panels of each cube so that I could run one long RGB strip through them. I decided to place the strip at the back of the cube on the lower bottom because these cubes are meant to be hanged up high above eye level. This did result in some less than stellar results that I'll show you in just a minute, but that's also something that I was expecting. I then soldered some extensions, prepared the controller, and tested the strip to make sure it was fully working before applying the heat shrink tubing. If you do this, do check that everything is wired correctly and remember to test all 5 diodes: red, green, blue, cool white, and warm white. After that, it was time to hang the cubes, and it was here that I ran into an issue. I was using a level to make sure that everything was aligned correctly, of course, but after the 3rd cube went up, I realized that the ceiling and other things in this apartment are not in fact level. So after those 3 cubes, I had to start tilting the next ones ever so slightly in order to compensate for this poor workmanship. And there is a noticeable consequence to that, but I'd say that it's rather minor, and given that this wasn't really my fault, I can live with it for now. After all the cubes went up, I made sure to clean everything really well, and I started to open up my boxes to put up the headsets. So here are the 8 headsets from my collection that I picked to be displayed. The Oculus DK1 Developer Kit 1. Released in 2013, this was the original Oculus headset that you could get as part of the Kickstarter. This is my favorite piece in my collection just because of its rarity and historical significance. And it was a gift from my friend Brian Howard, whose DIY projects are about 100,000 times more complicated than the one that you're watching. And you can check all the awesome stuff that he's up to on his YouTube channel at Brian Howard. I will also leave a link to his channel in the description. The next 3 VR headsets were also gifts from my good friend Stefan Tangway. His wife was bugging him about all these old headsets just taking up space, and so he found them a new home at my home. And with that, he really grew my collection quite substantially. I hope he appreciates this project and what I've done to display them. We have the 2015 Samsung Gear VR, which worked with a smartphone. And what I like the most about it is how you can remove that smartphone and then see through the lenses. I don't think anyone misses this kind of device. I mean, a lot of people don't even consider this to be their first VR experience because it's just so limited. But this was the precursor to standalone headsets, and it does have a place in XR history. We have the 2016 Oculus Rift CV1 Consumer Version 1. the first Oculus product to be released directed to the consumer market. Next, we have the 2016 HTC Vive, the original Vive, and from my perspective, the only HTC headset that truly impacted the industry and drove it forward. This product was a result of a very involved collaboration with Valve, and it's clear now that this is the only reason that HTC was as successful as it was developing and releasing it. It comes with the shitty Vive 1 controllers, as do all HTC headsets almost 10 years later. Then we have the 2019 Oculus Quest 1. This was the successor to the Oculus Go, and a huge leap forward when it comes to, well, everything. Performance, controllers, user experience. It was all beginning to align in order to meet the expectations of consumers, and has a very important place in XR history. The 2020 Pico Neo 2 Eye Edition, so this one's got eye tracking, and it's a pretty decent headset technically. I mean, there's no content for it unless you're developing your own content, but Pico has good technology. Next, we have the 2018 HTC Vive Pro 1, and it held the crown for best VR headset for a short while before the Index was released. Once the Index got released though, there was no competition. The Index was just superior in just about every way because of its build quality, the controllers that it came with, the larger field of view, the higher refresh rate, the better quality display, even though some people will say that they prefer the Vive Pro's OLED display over the Index because pure blacks or whatever. I mean, it's just a pretty bad OLED display, but okay. And the last headset that I've decided to put up here is the Pico Neo 3 Pro, which was released in 2021. So this is a fairly recent headset, and it's a headset that I've used a lot. There are many reasons why I really enjoy using this headset in tethered mode because, you know, standalone, there just isn't much content for it. But in tethered mode with the Pico cable, which is just an HDMI cable that you can screw into the headset, this headset has a spherical lenses, which is my favorite type of lenses, and it's got some big controllers compared to the Quest 2. These controllers also have great tracking. So yeah, it's one of my favorite headsets, even though I don't use it as a daily driver anymore. Oh wow. This really took a lot of work and made a big mess. But now it's finally finished. So let's take a look. Okay, so the objectives of this project were to free up the space on my shelves, display my XR collection so that I can appreciate it more, and to also have a more interesting background for my videos. Adding this as another component to my smart home so that it can be part of different scenes and automations. And those things have all been achieved. I'm happy with that, but like I mentioned in the beginning, there are some things that, I wish they were better. For instance, I put the LED strip at the back of the cubes because I didn't want them to be seen when people were looking up from the ground. And of course, I have been successful in that, but as everyone with a little bit of an understanding of photography and lighting knows, that when you place a light source behind the object, well, then not only is the object not lit, but our eyes and cameras adjust so that the object that is in front of the light source becomes very dark. So as it stands, the lighting isn't doing much in terms of accentuating the small details on all of these headsets. In fact, I'll be completely honest, you can mostly just see the silhouette of the headset and not the tiny details that distinguish each of them. But I knew this going in, and I made this decision consciously. It was a compromise because, again, limited budget, limited space, limited time, limited tools. This was the best I could do for now. Also, not that most people will note this from just seeing it on video, but the cubes aren't perfectly aligned to each other, and there are some small gaps, and that's mostly due to that issue that I mentioned with the ceiling not being level. Still though, I think it looks pretty cool. And here's the final result. While it is safe to say that this really isn't the level of quality that I usually go for, I'm decently satisfied with how things turned out, especially because my intention was always for this to be a version 1.0. I mean, in my mind, I have plans for a much larger and more intricate setup for displaying my XR collection, but that's something for the future. By then, I also hope that the collection itself will have grown substantially. And by the way, if you have some headsets or really any other XR collectibles from any era that are taking up space and bothering you and maybe your partner, do get in touch and I'll make sure that they are well taken care of. But I want to know what you think of this project. Did you like how it turned out? And also, are you a fellow XR collector? What is in your collection, or what would you like there to be in your collection? The XR industry is still substantially small for now, and this is a niche hobby for now, but I know there are some of you out there. Now listen, this was actually one of my first videos, and if you made it through to this point, well, that's awesome. So if you like this video, let me know by giving it a thumbs up, subscribe for more XR content, and just in case that you didn't like it, well, send it to someone that you don't like, because they're gonna absolutely hate it. As always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to unlink.